You're standing at the edge of a cliff. Night has fallen. The sky above stretches into a silent infinity, thick with stars that shimmer like distant, indifferent eyes. There's no wind, just cold, biting stillness. And a sudden realization strikes you. The universe doesn't care. It never did. All your dreams, your fears, your passions, everything that seemed so intense within you, suddenly feels microscopic, swallowed whole by the void above. You're not just small, you're invisible in the cosmic scale, a blink, a breath. But here's the paradox. Deep inside you, something rebels. A fire, faint but fierce, whispers back, "My life must matter." That voice refuses to be silenced. It insists that meaning isn't out there waiting to be found. It must be made, forged, carved into being, like a sculptor, chiseling truth from stone. You feel the tension rising. One part of you sees the crushing insignificance of life in a meaningless universe. Another part burns with the stubborn belief that you can still matter. This contradiction doesn't just confuse you, it awakens you. Look around at the people you've known. So many walk through life half asleep, numbed by habit and convenience. Their eyes are glazed from routine. Eat, work, scroll, sleep. But behind those dull routines is a hunger, a desperate, silent yearning for purpose. But they avoid it. They distract themselves. They drown that yearning in noise, comfort, consumption. You can't. And maybe that's your curse? Or maybe it's your calling. Friedrich Nietzsche once stood at the edge of this same existential abyss. And he did not turn away. Instead, he asked, what if this nothingness is not the end, but the beginning? What if the universe's indifference is not a void, but a canvas? The stars don't care, but you do. And maybe that's enough. But a new and deeper question now takes hold of you. Can meaning that's invented truly matter? Or are we simply playing pretend, clinging to illusions we've created just to avoid despair? If there is no eternal truth, how can we make something that lasts? To answer this, you must go deeper. Much deeper. To understand why we fear meaninglessness so deeply, you need to descend. Not outward into space, but inward, into the hidden corners of the human mind. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, warned of what lies beneath our conscious selves. The shadow. It's the reservoir of everything we suppress. Our fears, our doubts, our existential dread. We think ignoring these things will make them disappear. But Jung said the opposite. Repression only gives them more power. They haunt us from the dark. That quiet, gnawing emptiness you feel, that's your shadow whispering. The more you run, the more it follows. Nietzsche went further. He saw our despair as the lingering ghost of something we lost long ago. Absolute truth. For millennia we looked to religion, to tradition, to authority to give us meaning. These systems promised us a role in the grand design, a purpose bigger than ourselves. But Nietzsche declared, God is dead. He didn't mean this literally. He meant that the old sources of truth no longer held power in the modern world. Science, reason, and individualism had eroded them, and with them went our psychological safety net. We were suddenly alone, cosmically, terrifyingly alone. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this as proof that life itself was a trap, a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. He believed we were wired for suffering, driven by desires we could never truly satisfy. Then came Jean-Paul Sartre. Unlike Schopenhauer, he didn't see this emptiness as a tragedy. He saw it as freedom. Without divine plans or fixed destinies, we are radically responsible. We are free to create ourselves. But this freedom is terrifying. Because now, we can't blame anyone else. And so, we flee. We conform. We wear masks. We pretend to be who others want us to be. We live in what Sartre called bad faith, a life of denial, of numbing. But deep inside, the longing remains. You feel it, don't you? That ache for something real. The cliff still waits. The void still stares. But perhaps it's time to stare back. Existential dread isn't just found in philosophy books. It hides in everyday life. It weaves silently through your routines, your decisions, your very identity. Most people never even realize it's there. Why? Because the mind is wired to protect you, and in doing so it builds cages. Take confirmation bias. Your brain seeks out only the ideas that support your beliefs and avoids the ones that don't. It shields you from contradiction. It keeps you comfortable, but also blind. Then there's status quo bias, your deep, unconscious love for what feels familiar. Even if it's killing you, even if it makes you miserable. You'd rather suffer in predictability than face the terror of the unknown. On a biological level, your brain craves certainty like a drug. The regions responsible for fear and anxiety, like the amygdala, light up at the slightest threat to your sense of structure or purpose. And nothing threatens that more than meaninglessness. Society amplifies this fear. From birth, you're taught to seek approval, grades, trophies, promotions, likes, followers, external markers of value. But they never satisfy. They just create more hunger. You climb ladders that lead nowhere because the world told you that's where meaning lives. It doesn't. Beneath the achievements and applause lies a quiet void. The truth you've been trained not to see. Your value isn't out there. It's in what you choose to become. Modern life distracts you from this truth with everything it can. Constant entertainment, consumerism, social media, noise, pleasure, comfort. Huxley saw it coming, an entire civilization asleep in its own distractions. And yet, the emptiness grows, because meaning can't be consumed. It must be created. But to create it, you must do the unthinkable. You must wake up. This waking up isn't pleasant. It's painful. But it's the only path forward. Because once you see the invisible trap, you can escape it. Now you see it. The hidden machinery of denial, the unconscious traps, the societal illusions. You see how everything around you is built to keep you asleep, comfortably numb, quietly obedient, existentially blind. But awareness is rebellion. And Nietzsche, he didn't stop at awareness. He demanded transformation. He offered us the figure of the Übermensch, not a superior being in strength or intelligence, but one in authenticity. The Übermensch is someone who stares into the abyss and doesn't blink, who accepts life's chaos and still chooses to create. This rebellion is not destruction, it is creation. It begins with a single radical act, to live on your own terms, not to follow inherited values, not to chase meaning prescribed by others, but to build it, deliberately, defiantly, from your experiences, your suffering, your will. It is not easy. You will feel fear. You will face judgment. You will stumble. But you will be awake. This rebellion demands you drop the mask, that you stop performing for applause, that you stop chasing validation and start asking, what is truly mine? What burns inside me? What meaning would I fight for, even if no one ever applauded? Nietzsche called it amor fati, a love of fate. Not resignation, not fatalism, but an embrace of everything life throws at you, the good, the brutal, the absurd. Because it's yours, and through it, you shape something uniquely meaningful. Think of Viktor Frankl in the concentration camps, choosing purpose over despair. Think of Van Gogh, painting through agony. Think of Nietzsche himself, writing with failing health, defying conformity. They weren't spared from suffering. They used it, and so can you. But to do that, You must become something the world rarely encourages. Imagine this: your life, not as a problem to solve, but as a canvas. The paint, your passions, the brush, your choices. And the meaning? That's the image only you can create. This is what Nietzsche meant when he said that meaning is not found. It is forged. That your existence is not a product, but a process. A living work of art shaped by conscious will. The rebellion continues each day you choose authenticity over approval, passion over apathy, truth over comfort. It demands vigilance. You must constantly guard against the pull of old traps, social pressure, fear of failure, craving for certainty. You must ask yourself again and again, am I living my values or someone else's? Am I acting out of love or fear? Am I creating or conforming? To become the artist of your own life, you must also redefine failure. In this path, failure is not shameful. It is sacred. It's the raw material of growth. Every misstep, every heartbreak, every crisis adds depth to your canvas. You stop chasing success and start chasing authenticity. You stop seeking answers and start asking better questions. This is not isolation. It's deeper connection. When you live authentically, you don't hide behind roles. You invite others to be real with you. You form bonds based on truth, not pretense. You speak not to impress, but to connect. You don't have to reject the world, but you must reject the sleepwalking. You must stop waiting for permission to become who you are, because no one else is coming to define your life. That is your burden and your gift. Nietzsche gave us one last, haunting question: the eternal recurrence. Imagine this: every moment of your life, every triumph, heartbreak, mistake, joy, regret, repeating forever. Again and again. An infinite loop. Would you curse it, or would you embrace it? Would you live this life again, precisely as it is? This idea is not about literal time travel or metaphysical loops. It's a test, a mirror. It asks, are you living in a way that's worth repeating? If the answer is no, then something must change. But if the answer is yes, then you are truly alive. You begin to see that every moment matters, even the ones filled with pain, even the ones you wanted to forget, because you chose them, you owned them, you used them. This is not perfection. This is affirmation. You stop fearing the past. You stop dreading the future. You enter a fierce, grounded presence. You make peace with your scars because they are yours, and they make your story real. You start living as if your choices echo across eternity, because in a way, they do. Every authentic act becomes a ripple. Every moment you live with purpose inspires others to do the same. You become a quiet revolution in a world that forgot how to feel. And in this, you discover a deeper kind of power, not control. But so here you are again, standing on the cliff. The stars above are still silent. The void hasn't changed, but you have. Where once you saw nothingness, now you see possibility. You realize the universe's indifference is not a punishment. It's a gift. No script, no chains, just freedom. And with that freedom, the invitation to create something astonishing. You are not an accident. You are an artist of being. You were never meant to find meaning like a coin on the ground. You were meant to forge it with your will, your love, your courage. To live in a way so true, so vivid, so brave that even the void must pause to watch. This is Nietzsche's final truth. Not that life is meaningless, but that meaning begins with you. You don't escape suffering, you redeem it. You don't wait for purpose, you create it. And you don't fear the abyss, you walk into it, eyes open, heart on fire, knowing you are free. Free to live, free to fall. free to rise again and again. Now step from the edge, not to retreat, but to begin, because the void no longer consumes you. It answers to you. Creation.